Good evening and welcome back to episode 12 of the Hooked on NRL SuperCoach podcast. I'm your host, Sol, and I'm joined by my co-host, Fish. How are we, Fish?
Good, mate. Another good week, another green arrows. So we're on the up. I believe you also got green arrows as well. So the podcasts are flying. I'm just outside the top 1,000. We'll get into how I went a bit later on. But yes, great week, Supercoach wise. Good bounce back after a little dent last week. But yeah, mate, we move on. How about you?
That's it, mate. Yeah, same as you. Got the green arrow as well, so really stoked with that. Teams come from 60k at the start, and we're slowly making our way up into just over 5k now, and you're doing even better than that. So hopefully we can keep up the momentum and keep kicking on.
That's it, mate. We're giving out the good advice. We're doing well. Hopefully, the subscribers and the followers are doing well. It's good stuff all around. Speaking of the followers and subscribers, that rolls us nicely into our little YouTube comment section. Again, massive shout out to all you guys that like, comment the videos, subscribe. We're up to 91 subs. We're almost at the 100 subscribers. And for 100 subscribers, me and Sol will be doing a 100 subscribers special. So
That's
stay
it.
tuned. There's something in the works. We've already got a plan probably for next year. We won't get there quite this year, but we will do something as well this year for 100 subs. So we're pretty keen. So yeah, don't forget, subscribe up, guys.
That's it, mate. And yeah, thank you to everyone that's been listening all the way. We really appreciate it, as Fish said.
That's it. We do, guys. We really do. First comment of today's videos. We've got Benny Woodrow. He's gone. Bring in Karaz or Herbie this week. Starting to think Karaz plays Origin in the Lomax spot. So we'll throw that over to you first, Sol. What do you reckon here? I believe you're in a dilemma similar yourself.
A little bit, yeah. Definitely, Karaz for me is the option. Both are. Yeah, I can't fault either. Obviously, Herbie with the Pommy background will miss Origin, but I don't think Karaz will play. I think Lomax just needs to get one game back in healthy, and he'll be picked for the Origin squad. He played too well last year in that spot to miss out, and I think To'o is just a lock. So both of those guys healthy should be locks on the wings. So I wouldn't be too concerned. At the same time, Bulldogs also go on a really good run after the Broncos game, and even this week's not too tough for them. So Kraz for me, and you're a Kraz owner, so I assume you would be saying similar.
Yes, very much. I would agree. I would be bringing in Karaz first, but Herbie is someone I want just as much. Like, I believe these two guys will be part of the top four center wing guns for the year. And if we can lock them in now for the season and just get their good scores, get their average to the end of the season, I think it's a great time to buy. Great buy coverage for both of them. Obviously, Karaz does have the bit of a New South Wales concern, but yeah, as you mentioned, I think Lomax, if he's back just one game in the NRL, I reckon he'll just walk straight back into that. So yeah, I'm with Karaz on that one, Benny. Sammy J's gone best in the business,
Thanks, mate.
and best dad has gone good win from the Gatorade saxophones last week, bringing in the Queensland boy Holmes this week for a bit of a pod. My sneaky link lives near Pines Park. She reckons it's gonna rain tonight, and the rain. Let's go for the Dragons. Wow, there was
Jeez, that's
a lot to unpack there, isn't it? Bloody hell, a lot
yeah.
to unpack. Good on your best dad, 705, living it up, mate. Holmes, like the buy. The only issue is obviously injury. Not injury. Origin is the concern. Dragons players that do play Origin do not have a good buy schedule at all. So I do agree. I do think he is a keeper for the year. Like you brought him now, no point selling, just hold him through. He is a gun. But I don't know if I was buying fresh, if I would go Holmes. But I do like the pod buys. But as Benny sort of mentioned earlier, I would prefer both Karaz and Herbie.
Yeah, I'm fully with you on that one, mate. On that though, I don't think Holmes. I think Holmes is more likely than unlikely that he plays Origin, but I do see a world where he might miss it. Hammer's definitely got one of those centre spots locked down, and I would say Holmes would have the other. But who knows? Gagai, Queensland do love picking Gagai, and he always performs in Origin, so it's not as certain as you may think. And Holmes isn't the best defender, but that being said, I do think Holmes does play Origin, but yeah, and I do prefer Herbie and Karaz over Holmes, but don't mind the pod play at all.
There we go. So yeah, remember, don't forget to comment on this podcast episode. We'll get back to you in the next podcast episode. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. That takes us now over to our review. So we'll review my team first. I got 1323 last week, so we cracked the 1300, which ensured big greens. We got Sandon Smith up at hooker. Obviously, this is just a dead spot in SuperCoach. I've had to tinker around this week with selling Pakes to someone, but there really is no one else to go to. You obviously have Watson, but with the buys with Origin players for the Roosters, I think he plays 2 games in the next 9 after their buy sort of thing. So it's just not a viable option. Obviously, Grant is the guy, but he's injured at the moment as well. Moving on, front row forwards, Haas, May, Horse, happy days, lock them in. I think Haas and May this year are probably going to average higher than any of the gun second row forwards. What do you reckon there?
I agree, mate. I agree on that.
They're just a level above. And we saw on the weekend, obviously, Terrell crossover for his first meat pie of the year. Second row, we got Tino, Big Naff White. That was a big one of my boys I was very happy with. Obviously, I held a lot sold last week. I know yourself sold as well, but we saw last week Egan Butcher go down early doors in the game, and Naff White is really that guy that makes the most of any injuries in the game. Played big minutes, massive work rate, got through a bunch of work, and I think we're going to see the same from him again this week. So he'll be someone I'm definitely playing, and a 76 is exactly why I hold. I'll hold through the buys very much so happily now. So he's going to be a hold for a while now.
He's
Do
just
you
such an
regret?
awesome player.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
you regret selling him or happy to have moved on?
Oh, look, I sold him to Ali Katoa, who obviously stunk it up last week. But I think long term, I'm happy with having just Ali Katoa set and forget on my side. Part of the reason I sold White is just because I want a bit more upside in my second row. I know he scored really well, and I do really like him as a player. He also covers the buys really well, but I'm pretty set for the buy round, which is part of the reason why I sold. And I had no gun second rows basically, so I wanted to strengthen the position. I obviously would have been nice if Ali Katoa did a bit better last week. Overall, I don't regret it. I'm happy to move on from him, but it's also one of those ones where if you sold, you're stoked, but if you held like me, I don't think I'll be regretting that too much in the future.
Yeah, and then just a question, I suppose, for the listeners out there, could also be me in a couple of weeks. Who is a better sell between Horsburgh and Naff White? Both similar price, both same duel. I'm thinking after the weekend with Horse's minutes seemingly on the decline, probably Horse now. I'd rather sell Horse, especially. I think he makes Origin. Do we think he makes Origin?
I'm not sure. It's going to be really close on that call. If he makes Origin, then obviously Nath White's a better hold. I was in that dilemma last week. I definitely was leaning way more towards White being a sell, which is why I sold him. But this week, I definitely do think that probably Horse is narrowly a better sell than White. At the same time, it's really tough, isn't it? I think either way you can't go wrong. White's got the better buy coverage though, so I'd probably lean towards holding him now over Horsburgh, especially after seeing another week of the Raiders giving Horsburgh low minutes.
Yeah, I agree there, mate. Moving on to halfbacks, Cleary Hines, happy enough with that. We saw Cleary, obviously, he was your captain last week, but he got 116 and no tries, no try assists. I think he's back. He's back. The accumulator. He just accumulates points. Like I think we saw in the last couple minutes of that game, he's got about 3 forced dropouts, line break assists. Like got like 40 points in the last couple minutes of that game. So he can really just accumulate points so much. And I know this week he's going to be probably my captain because of just how much of an accumulator he is. Moving on to 5'8". Obviously, we got the injuries, and it's now been confirmed. JC will miss a month, 4 to 5 weeks, I believe the news is.
Yeah,
Massive sting for owners. Puts owners in a bit of a sticky situation because there's not much going on either at 5'8", like hooker. So I know as a non-Munster owner like yourself, it's a pretty easy trade, I reckon, to go JC to Munster. You free up even 50k and just lock that guy in. But for someone with Munster, I think it could be a viable play to just sit and hold there with the depth coming through elsewhere on the park and me not really having to play a reserve in 5'8". I just don't think I like any of the other options.
Yeah, well, that's it. I don't think this week's a week to be, if you are in the position yourself like you are with Munster and Jaden Campbell. You've got Dylan Brown who's on the bye. You've got Galvin who's got a bye soon, and also he's just come back into the side. You've got Burton, who was the one I most like out of all of them, but we saw he didn't goal kick last week, and also it's going to be torrential rain down here in Brisbane, and he's still got a relatively high BE, so I don't think it's a rush to get in any of those guys. If I was favouring one of them, it would be Burton for sure, though, if I was going to move off. But even then, if he plays Origin, which he very well could, then that's going to be a bit of a nightmare trade because the Bulldogs play all three major bye rounds, and Origin players will miss from the Bulldogs will miss a lot of games during that period.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Moving then over to centers, I had Garrick Carraz, who I brought in last week and captained. Had a gut feeling, got 84, can't be not happy with, but I just had a feeling he scored, and if he scores, he tons. I'm pretty big on that. He is just a gun. He just mauls work, loves an offload, loves a tackle bus. Speaking of tackle bus, how good's Greg Marzu? Big Greg the leg. He is
Yeah,
unreal.
mate, that's it. I don't want to toot our own horns a bit here, but obviously our good friend Matt sold him, and I just can't believe the people that sold Margie. He gets like close to 50 in base every game, no matter how poorly the Knights have been looking, and when he just can put up scores like this. Past previous seasons he's hit 700k. Now he's got a great run of fixtures. He also doesn't have a buy, I think, until like round 16. So if you didn't have him, I'd definitely be looking at trading him in, and very stoked with Greg the Leg.
Couldn't agree more, mate. And I agree. If you don't have him in, he is someone that I would definitely be targeting this week. Obviously, the Knights draw seems to be opening up a little bit now. Obviously, we can't trust the Knights at all this year, but I just think he scored one try and he got 138. Like it's nuts. His tackle busting ability, his work ethic, every single kick. He may not be that good under the high ball, but that first run of the set, he's always trucking it up. More's the tackle bust, more's the offload. So yes, couldn't be happier with him. Moving then on to fullbacks. A bit of a stinker last week. We had Gutho, Ponga, and Pappy. So Ponga again is now down to, I think, the cheapest I've ever seen him really in NRL SuperCoach, at least in my time playing, apart from this HIA games. But I just can't believe just how bad the Knights are going.
Hmm.
I think I'm turning into like the mad scientist. You got to keep. I just think they'll turn it around every week. I think they'll turn it around, but they
That's it,
just
mate. You've
seem
been tipping
to.
them as well the last
Exactly.
two
Been
weeks.
tipping him, betting on him.
Yeah.
It's just been horror. I gotta get off the Knights train. But as I said, I think the Knights draw opens up now. So I'm if you have him, you're definitely holding on. The time to sell is long gone. And I think a few people are actually buying him this week. So
Yep.
hopefully this is the week where he finally turns it around. And that should coincide nicely as we'll get into team lists with Dylan Lucas back this week. I think he's a bit of a big turning point for the Knights.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And yeah, I'm really happy with the time I sold Ponga just before he went on this run of really bad games. So I sold him on the buy, and then he's run into pretty much sub 50 scores every single week since, and he's dropped almost about 200k, and is now less than even Reece Walsh, which is, I'm pretty happy with that call selling him to Teddy. And but I do think that if you held all this time, you would hold now with the Knights coming into a good draw, and he's just bled so much cash, and we know what he's capable of. But yeah, definitely happy with the time I jumped off him.
Yeah, you seem to have timed that trade perfectly there, mate. Going on over to our leagues now. So obviously the
Oh, you
13,
want to run
20.
through my side, mate?
Yeah, we'll scroll down to yours after, lad. Don't worry.
That's
So
it,
yeah,
mate.
puts me into sixth place now in the league, which is good. And yeah, as I said, we saw some big green arrows. Top of the league this week, we got big Jet Speed. We've seen his team before, so good to see Nathan back on top, leading up the charge in 164th spot. So hopefully you keep it up there, mate.
That's
You're
awesome.
getting closer and closer up here now, mate. Where are you? There he is,
Yeah,
Ciolo
that's there.
Soldiers into 559 seventh with a 1270 last week.
That's it, mate. Yeah, pretty happy with that, and especially considering where I've come from a couple of weeks ago. There is quite a large cluster of us sort of around that points range, so hopefully can just continue the upward trend. Um, Looking at my team, obviously last week, very happy with the captaincy call on Cleary. 116 did nothing. That was a huge points maker for me. I wasn't really feeling the Pappy captain, and seems like you were the same as well. So, and especially I did captain Pappy the week before when he went for 136. So I've gone 2 weeks in a row where I've done pretty well with my captaincy choices. So hoping to keep that momentum up. But obviously Cleary and Marju were huge for me in this. So we'll start at hooker. This is, I can't believe this. Another injury for me the week after I trade them in. Harry Grant is now gone, but apparently it's only till round 10. So that's not as bad, but it's just really annoying, especially when you've got Jaden Campbell and Walsh also getting injured as well. I just can't seem to sort of buck the trend of copying an injury every week. So I've got three guys that I've got to get rid of now, but can't complain too much with the hooker position being such a dud as you touched on before. So I'll keep kicking on and play Sandon, and hopefully Harry Grant is back in time for the Roosters bye. So I'll be holding him, and he's the hooker I want anyway at the end of the year. Front row is pretty similar. Happy with all three of those guys. Ali Katoa, briefly touched on it before. Really infuriating bringing him in last week, and he gets his lowest score of the year, sub 40. I just didn't even think that was possible for a player like him, but he's proved me wrong. So hopefully he owes me this week, and I'm really hoping for a good game this week. I think we'll get to it later, but I think you're looking at considering him as well. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, he really needs to turn it around. Wasn't very happy with that score from him. I was expecting a big game. Horsburgh, Egan, Nicholson, all relatively happy. Obviously, you had Hubner, who's also out as well, but pretty well everyone's in the same boat there. Cleary and Hines and the halves. Cleary captain, happy with. Dewey, someone that I thought would have done a lot better than he did. 36 points, and he looked dreadful for the Tigers. And the Tigers, they welcome back Lockie Galvin this week, so which I think is a positive sign for them and the club, because Dewey just did not look very good in the halves at all. And I was expecting big things from him in action, and I was expecting the Tigers to win that game, and he just stunk it up with 36 points. Same with, I had a few scores in the like 30, 40 range with Dewey, Garrick, Arthurs, and Jenkins. So, and Walsh, and then Egan as well. Not too many massive scores, but one good thing that did come out of the Jaden Campbell injury is I ended up playing Tamale as a result, and couldn't be happier with that. So very happy with his 89 points. I wasn't going to play him, and then obviously Jaden Campbell was ruled out, so a bit of a blessing in disguise there. Marju, obviously very stoked with him, and the fullbacks, very, very Teddy, 65 points. This is his lowest score since I've had him. I've had him since round 3, 65, and he just did absolutely nothing. This guy is just a freak. I'm very happy I jumped on when I did for Ponga, and he will be in my side for the year. I'm never going to trade him out unless he gets a shot call up into Origin, but very happy to just set and forget him and move on with it. And Pappenhausen and then Walsh obviously is injured now, so has to go. So not too bad of a week. Hopefully for more green arrows moving forward.
Yeah, I like it, mate. The sides, as we can see with both our sides now, we're really starting to build our side and the team depth and everything. So yeah, it's looking good. Obviously, you can't catch a break with the injuries, but that's just SuperCoach sometimes. So that
That's it,
wraps
mate.
up the league and our review. Again, just a quick shout out. You've got only a couple more rounds left before we shut it out. We close her off the league. League code is 849156, and we've got 116 in there. So again, every week still growing. Love to see it. Moving on to the TLT for this week, mate. If you want to take us away with the first game on Thursday night, we have the Broncos and the Bulldogs.
That's it, mate. So Broncos and Bulldogs. I might just quickly get up the weather as well, because I'm going to chat about that in here too. So I think I might be a bit late for that. Anyway, I was going to go through a bit of a weather forecast for this weekend because I think that kind of helps with running through the team list. But in this game, we obviously live in Brisbane and we know that it's going to be pissing down rain. So anyway, I'll move on to the team list. Broncos, the loss of Reece Walsh to a knee injury sees Selwyn Cobbo take over the fullback and Dean Mara come in on the wing. Brendan Piakura returns on the bench after serving a 2-game ban for a high tackle. And for the Bulldogs, just the one change to the side that downed the Rabbitohs with Harry Hayes joining the bench in place of Jack Todd, who faces a lengthy stint on the sideline with a fractured arm. Daniel Saluka Fafita is again listed as 18th man. The Bulldogs are aiming to win 7 in a row for the first time since 2014. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, cheers, Weatherman Sol. With not too much to touch on with the Broncos. Obviously, we see Cobbo back at fullback now. Wouldn't be buying, but if you're an owner for whatever reason, you'd be happy with that. I reckon he sees a big uptick in base and power this week. The only other thing for me to touch on with the Broncos is Pakes is now this shift to the interchange looks to be permanent. He's been listed on the bench yet again this week. So for someone like me as an owner, it's really tricky because there's no one I want to go up and there's no one I want to go down to. So for now, I'm just going to let him plug there, twaddle along, and then when an option emerges, like when Grant's back or if we see a cheapie come through, I might downgrade or upgrade. But yeah, for now, he's someone I'm just holding there. So that's about it for the Broncos for me, mate.
Yeah, I've got nothing really to touch on for the Broncos. Obviously I sold Corey Pakes for Harry Grant, which I feel like it was the right time to get off Pakes at that time. But I also feel like for someone in a position like yourself, you can easily just hold on with the lack of options. It's not really a priority. Nothing there from the Broncos, and then for the Bulldogs, I'll let you kick us off there.
Yeah, for the Bulldogs, really the big watch for me is Matt Burton and the kicking duties this week. If we see Matt Burton retake the kicking tee, which I reckon he will, I don't know if it'll be this week, next week, but sometime in the future, I do believe Matt Burton will get the tee back off Crichton. Crichton has obviously been kicking it really well recently, but I just think Burton is the better career kicker. So yeah, the watch here for me is Burton. If he kicks, he then becomes a super coach option for me, and he'll be someone I'd be looking to trade in next week for JC. But apart from that, no one else. Obviously, I've got Karaz, massive on him. He just mauls work. Maybe a bit of a shout out to Cacao. I knew a couple of people last week brought him. He didn't quite perform, but him and Preston, they just look this year to just get through a bunch of work. And I reckon if you have either of them, you definitely hold and just wait for the big scores that are inevitably coming.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree. I think Burden and Kikau are both good pod buys at the moment. That left edge seems to be humming, and also Karaz is just he would be my pick from the Bulldogs at the moment, as you would know, jumping on him last week. Sneaky shout out as well to Bonton Jerry, who's been killing it. Um, we sort of briefly touched on it as well last week with Matt Burden with the goal kicking. Sorry, earlier today with Matt Burden having the goal kicking. It'd be interesting to see if he get regains that this week because then he becomes a big option. Um, I'm not sure because Crichton's been kicking him well as well, so that's something to look out for. And obviously you've got Jacob Preston who's doing really well, and then an awesome pod buyer in my opinion is Connor Tracy for the following weeks. So if you want to go someone a bit different and veer away from the pack, Connor Tracy plays all 3 major buy rounds. He's a fullback. Obviously we know that fullbacks accumulate a lot of points in Supercoach, and he's playing in a side that's looking to win their 7th straight game. So I don't mind him at all as a bit of a shout.
Yeah, love that pod shout there, mate. I also have Tracy nabbed him in draft, and yeah, he just punches out work. I think he got 80 something on the weekend. Didn't really do too much, and I think his average for the season is like 65. So with the Dogs draw really opening up after this Broncos game, I think now could be a good time to jump on. In this game, I got the Dogs by 12. How about you?
I got the Dogs by 6 in this one.
Should be a good game for your Thursday night.
That's it,
Footy.
mate.
Taking us on to not Good Friday, Anzac Friday this week. So many public holidays. I've been loving it. We got
Yeah,
the
same
Roosters
here.
and the Dragons. Should be a cracker.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this Anzac Day clash. So for the Roosters, Billy Smith's return for suspension sees Mark Nwanawi Tawaze shift to the wing and Dom Young drop out, which is something that a couple of weeks ago I touched on when people were looking at selling Toya, I always thought that Toya was the right centre spot was Toya's, and Mark Nwanowitu would be pushing for a wing spot. So happy to take one for the ego there, and hopefully we see Mark on the wing for a sustained period because he's such a good player as well. So moving on, we got Spencer Leniu starts at prop in the absence of Nat Butcher, while Angus Crichton returned from a groin problem pushes Salisi Foketi to the bench. Having returned from injury via New South Wales Cup last weekend, Egan Butcher comes in on the bench and Taylor Losalu drops to the reserves. Butcher plays his first NRL game since suffering an ACL injury in round 12 last year. Far out. And for the Dragons, Sione Finau has been called in on the wing to replace Matt Fiongo, who suffered a fibular and high-grade syndesmosis injury in the tackle that saw Manly's Toff Sipley referred straight to the judiciary. Emro Gawler returns from suspension on the bench to fill the hole left by Hamish Stewart. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, a bit to unpack here. Firstly, for the Roosters, James Tedesco, I think this is probably the last week you can buy him before, obviously, they have the buy in round 10 and the Origin teams are announced round 11, round 12. So I think this is really the last opportunity if you want to get him before he goes into next week's game, then the buy, then Origin. If he misses, then you're happy to get him then. I'm happy to buy then. But if he doesn't, he's definitely an avoid. If he does make Origin, sorry, definitely an avoid. So I feel like this week, if you want to grab a fullback, Teddy's a great option. Just, yeah, this is the time to go for Teddy, I feel. Marky Mark on the wing looks the goods. I've looked at him as a bit of a pod option. I like him. I think he'll be better than Dom Young. He just seems like a more competent Dom Young, really. He just runs the ball with way more vigor, can tackle, and I think I do see him doing well. So yeah, you did call that one, mate. So +1 to the ego, but then also -1 to the ego because you said that Savala would be kicking over Sandon, and as we've
Yeah.
seen, Sandon has kept the kicking duties there. In the forwards, Naf White starting. I think big minutes. We see it's him and Spencer this week in the prop, obviously with Nat Butcher out. So yeah, I think we can lock him in. Us owners lock him in for 60 minutes this week. I think big minutes, big game, big points. Let's go. That's probably it for the Roosters for me. How about you?
Yeah, mate. Obviously, as we touched on, Mark Nwanowitu on the wing becomes a really interesting proposition. I think he just looks so good and has such a super coach friendly game. He's sort of like Karaz in his ability to just go into contact and offload at will. So obviously, I think he'll be scoring more tries on the wing. He's really good in the air, and then also he'll take more carries there too. So less tackles, but more carries and more offloads. So bit of an eye on him as he'll be a huge pod play this week. I really do feel like this week there's a lot of quite good buys, and it's just really hard to fit them all in. Other than that, I wouldn't be. I would be looking at Roosters players that don't play Origin, and if you are looking at Roosters players that do play Origin, I would quickly advise you not to do that because they've played all three of the major buy rounds and they're going to miss a huge chunk of games. So Connor Watson, I believe, is in one of the most traded in this week, and I do not understand that at all with how many games he is going to miss during that period. Not too much else to touch on in that one. Obviously, very sad to see Nat Butcher get injured. Swear he cops a fair few knocks, that bloke, and can't catch a bit of a break. So, yeah, happy to move on to the Dragons, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Just quickly, I think we forgot to mention Billy Smith because we won't be talking about the most purchased this week.
Yeah.
We'll just throw this all in here just to time constraints. But I think Billy Smith almost a must-have cheapie. I think he can produce 60 plus average. We'll make a bunch of cash at 300k. We've just mentioned how good of a buy draw the Roosters do have for the non-Origin players. I think lock him in. He's a great buy this week.
Yeah, I definitely agree, mate. Great buy, and that's why he's one of the most purchased this week. Can't fault it, but I also think he's not a must-have, but he's close. He's close. Like you could definitely prioritize getting in two guns over getting in a Billy Smith, but he's a really good buy, and you can't go wrong there.
That's it, mate. And for the Dragons, not too much really to touch on. Obviously, Finu is interesting. Bit of a watch on Tupelotu there because if we can see him get an extended run, Finu, we saw in the trials, this guy can score just as many tries as Tui. So I don't think he'll be quite the same as Tui as in base wise. But I think this kid is a bit of a goer as well. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that he's a bit of a watch. And obviously Couchman, he just keeps getting it done week in, week out. He puts in insane numbers just in the minutes he's playing, just his work rate is incredible. And doing that consistently now we've seen over a couple rounds. So yeah, bit of a shout out to Couchman there. But apart from that, that's it for me for the Drags, mate.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. Cashman seems to be the one that got away from everyone this year. He's just unbelievable for Supercoach. Mauls the tackles and offloads it well. He's just got such a good Supercoach friendly game. And I've even heard people throw his name around out in Origin circles. So that'd be interesting. I wouldn't even mind that as a New South Wales supporter, blooding in some youth into the pack. And I think we do need more players like him. So yeah, nothing really to more to touch on. Keen eye and Finau. And then obviously Gutherson's in a bit of a slump at the moment and comes into a bit of a tough draw. And I have heard of people selling him at the moment. And if I own Gutho, I don't think I'd be selling, but I do understand it. Most people bought for the cash gen that he was going to produce, and he looks like he's about to leak fair bit of coin and maybe even go back to where his starting price was. But I think there's a bigger fires to put out for most sides, and he'll still do a decent job for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna just quickly jump in. If you have Gutherson, definitely hold. And I don't think it's a hard draw at all, really coming up. You see, his next three games, the Roosters, Tigers, and Warriors. I think he can go bonkers in two out of those games. We've seen his scores this year. He's got one score under 50, two scores in 60, and then three are 100 plus. Like this guy has massive upside. He's involved in everything. He's a great watch. I would not be selling him. I assume most of the people that are selling are the people that just brought him for that initial value. But yeah, look, I'd be very confident holding Ponga. As I said, I reckon he goes big in two of the next sort of 3, 4 games. So yeah, definitely would be holding with confidence there as well. But in this game, I do think the Dragons show up again. I knew we called it last week. The Dragons showed up,
Yeah,
but neither of us tipped it. But I think they'll show up again. But I do think the Roosters, coming off the big loss last week to the Panthers, do bounce back and win this. So I probably have Roosters by 10.
yeah, I've got the Roosters in this one, but not by as much. I'm going to go Roosters by 6.
That's it. Moving on to our second game of Friday night. We got the Wars and versus the Knights.
That's it, mate. So my Wars, we're flying at the moment, beating the Broncos last week. I couldn't be happier, and we've got another home game this week, so hopefully we can sort of move up the ladder. I think we're in fourth place at the moment. So for the Warriors, Chance Nickel-Cloxard is back from concussion for the Anzac Day clash. So live wire, Tane Tuapiki moves to the wing, and Ed Cossey drops to the reserves. Ed Cossey, far out. That guy. Oh, I
Sucks.
don't want to fire up too much, but that guy does my bloody head in as a Warriors fan. I don't know how he plays first grade. He almost cost us the game again. So I'm happy to see him go and Chan's back in there. Center Rocco Berry is also back after one game ban. So Kurt Capewell returns to the back row. Shout out to Kurt Capewell as well. He played well better than I thought he would have in the centers last week. I thought those days were well past him, but he actually turned it on and put in a really good performance for us there. Leka Halasima to the bench as well. I do not rate that one bit. Like he's been such a live wire. He needs to be starting every week for us. I would love to see him just lock in a back row spot. He's been one of our best players, and he's just so talented. Give him the captaincy even. I love that guy. Tomato Martin goes to 18th man after coming off the bench against the Broncos. And then for the Knights, rising back rower Dylan Lucas is back on deck. So Tom Cant moves to the bench and Jermaine McEwen makes way. Jack Cogger has been named in the extended squad as he looks to return from a finger injury. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, not too much to touch on for the Warriors in a Supercoach sense for me. It's more so the talking points are the Knights here, and we've see obviously the big Dylan Lucas return. We were massive on him in the preseason. Game 1, game 2, punched out 88 average. The guy's elite. It's just coming off a hamstring injury. The hamstring injuries, I'm pretty sure one of the highest reoccurring injuries. I think it's 20 to 30% chance that in his next game he can re-injure it. And I just don't know if it's worth quite the risk grabbing yet. Obviously, he's going to go up in price this week, and I don't really see him coming back down. So I do think this is probably the cheapest he's going to be. It's just if you want to take that risk and sort of pod play in grabbing this week. But I also don't think he plays 80 this week. I think we see Thomas Can't play about 20, 30 minutes, and we see Lucas play 50, 60 just while he gets his match fitness back. But for Thomas Can't owners, we can have him this week. Definitely wouldn't be playing. And then next week, it looks like a sell. But apart from that, that probably wraps it up in a Supercoach sense for me.
That's it, mate. Yeah, likewise to you. Not too much to talk about in Supercoach for the Warriors. In draft, I do like Chance and the Clockside as a bit of a pickup, and for the Warriors. And I also, Leka Halasima, it's a bit disappointing for the people that do have him or got him last week that he's back to the interchange. I thought for sure, well, on form, he should be keeping that spot. He's looked unreal. And then for the Knights, Ponga, if you, as we touched on, if you have held this long, you would continue holding, I believe. And then you've got Marju and Lucas, who are great buyers. Quick question to you, mate. If you were a non-Greg Marju owner, obviously we both have him, would you be leaning Marju or Lucas in this week?
Marzu, definitely.
Yeah.
Just no injury with the base. Obviously, I think he has a higher upside than Lucas, but I think Lucas has a way safer base. But especially buying this week, we see Marzu's break even is -13. He's going to be 700k in 1-2 weeks. So jump on now, whereas Lucas, we can jump on next week, and he should hopefully be only about 650k.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And obviously I don't own Tom Can't, so I can't really speak too much, but I do agree with you that you can definitely wait this week with a BU of 21, I believe. But I think next week, depending on how his minutes go, you probably got to look at moving him on.
That's it. In this game, geez, I'm going to do it again. I see the Knights coming back. I think for whatever reason, I see Dill Lucas back. I think the Warriors at home will be super hard to beat, but just as the Mad Hatter does, we're gonna stay strong with the Knights, and we'll back the Knights in here.
Um, I'm actually going to agree with you on that one, mate. I've tipped the Knights this week
Jeez.
against my Warriors. Yeah, I know. I just, I really do have a bad feeling about this game. I know I've said that a couple of weeks in a row about the Warriors. It seems like every week I don't back them, they come out and surprise me. So I'm going to keep not backing them. Even against the hopeless Knights, who I've avoided tipping the last 2 weeks, but I'm going to tip the Knights this week. And hopefully the Warriors. Either way, I can come away with something. I can come away with a tip, or my team wins. I would rather the Warriors win, but yeah, I'm gonna back the underdogs as well, mate. I think in this one, I just get a bad feeling, like I have for the past few weeks in a row, about more Warriors.
Yeah, well, if it's not broke, don't. Oh, well, whatever the saying is.
If it
Hopefully
ain't
the
broke,
Wild.
don't fix it, eh?
That's it. Hopefully the Wilds keep doing well, but hopefully for my Supercoach team, the Knights show up and put a score on. Moving on to the other. Wait,
Maybe on to the next game.
Friday. Do they have 2 games on? They got 3 games on Friday.
Yeah, it's Anzac Day,
Oh,
mate.
geez, settle in. Listeners,
Yeah,
settle in on your Friday. You got 3 games. I was not expecting that. That's massive.
yeah, awesome. I am so happy that the Warriors aren't versing the Storm on Anzac Day this year. Far out every year on Anzac Day we play the Storm and we get absolutely pumped at Amy Park. So it's the Rabbitohs' turn for that. I think. Maybe on to this one for the Storm. The loss of Jack Howarth, who's got copped a shoulder injury, is offset by the return of Nick Meaney from a jaw injury. Bench forward Tui Kamakamitha is out with an ankle injury. His place taken by Lazarus Valipu. Premiership winning prop Nelson Asafa Solomonia continues to work through the NRL's return to play protocols for concussion and has been listed among the reserves for the Anzac Day game. For the Rabbitohs, after 1 game at centre and 2 at 5'8", superstar Latrell Mitchell shifts to fullback, and Jai Gray, who as of the start of last week was actually leading the Dally M leaderboard, which I found very interesting, and he's been playing really well. But Jai Gray goes to the bench with Lewis Dodd dropping out. Bailey Bentley Hape comes in on the wing, so Campbell Graham shifts to centre and Ewan Aitken to the back row. Jalen Sullivan returns to suspension at halfback to partner Cody Walker at the scrum base. Lachlan Hubner is out with concussion, so Jai Arrow slides to lock. I'll hand this over to you, mate, to get your first thoughts. I've just got to duck off for a quick 30 seconds. I'll be back.
All good. All right. So talking points for the Storm. Pappy, big watch on Pappy this week. Does he keep the kicking tee? We obviously see Nick Meaney come back this week from injury. And yeah, the real watch there is who's going to kick. Paps has obviously been nailing the kicks recently. I'm pretty sure he's hitting at him at like 85%, 88% or something ridiculous since he's been kicking so far this year. So he's been doing really well. But if he loses the kicking tee, that does hurt him as a super coach option. So hopefully, for our sake, Haps keeps the kicking tee. Obviously, the 167 podcast comes out today and we haven't seen it yet. We recorded at a similar time. So he might have let us know in that to see whether he's kicking or not. Because if he's not kicking, I don't really like him as a VC option and he loses that real high upside that I reckon he has. Other people from the Storm, obviously, Eli Katoa with a bit of a donkey score last week. I think he bounces back this week. I think the whole Storm bounced back. And I think, as they've mentioned, I think they're going to put a score on the Bunnies here. Obviously, the Storm got pumped last week by the Dolphins in a massive upset. Obviously, I called that I thought the Dolphins would turn up, but I didn't think they would turn up and really put the Storm away. So I think we see a Storm, a big resurgence and comeback this week. So I think points all over the park, and that is why I'm interested in getting ECAT as well this week. Apart from that, that pretty much covers up the Storm. Any quick points from the Storm from you, mate?
Yeah, mate. Kane Bradley is a bit of an interesting look. I'm not sure if you touched on him just then, but I don't think he'll hold the spot for very long with Warbrick due back likely very soon. But he's someone to keep an eye out for and someone I actually picked up on in draft. It'll be interesting to see if Pappy keeps the goal kicking as well. He's been kicking them so well, and I believe on the 167 podcast today, he was talking about how well he's been striking them. So hopefully, it sounds like he's going to keep the goal kicking, which is a massive positive for us owners. And then not too much else on the Storm side of things there, mate. Hopefully, Ali
That's it.
Katoa can have a bit of resurgence as well. I heard you touch on him at the end there. There's someone that could potentially be buying this week. Surely he doesn't put up another dud score like that last week because that would infuriate me, especially when you got guys like Hudson Young, who I could have gotten last week, who absolutely tore the Titans to shreds.
That's it, mate. Hopefully, a bounce back for the Storm across the board. For the Bunnies, obviously, a big talking point here is we see Trell back at fullback. I think it's a bit stiff on Jai Gray, but I think for the Bunnies as a club, I think it's what makes sense and what needs to happen. Obviously, I think there's been some late mail come out very recently that Cody Walker has redone his injury and he's going to be out for this clash. So
Jeez.
I wonder what are they going to do then? Are they going to flick Latrell back to the halves and put Gray back to fullback? That's probably the most likely scenario, but yes, will be a bit of a wash there. But apart from that, no real super coach interest in the Bunnies, especially now that Hubner is out.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I wouldn't be buying anyone for this clash against the Storm at Amy Park. Coming off the back of a 20-point flogging for the Dolphins, Bellamy will have them up for it. And I just don't see how the Rabbitohs will come away winning this one. And I guess we can segue that into our tips. I'll be tipping the Storm. If I had to pick a margin, I'm going to say by 18 points.
Yeah, I agree. Storm by 24 in this one. Moving on to our Saturday game, we got the Cows and the Titans.
We have for the Cowboys, back rower John Bateman returns from an infection, and Jeremiah Nanai moves into the starting side. So Kyle O'Donnell and Sam McIntyre go to the bench. Harrison Edwards drops to 18th man. For the Titans, barnstorming back forward, David Fafita has been named to play despite initial fears he could miss up to a month with a hamstring injury. I can't believe that, mate. We were chatting about that a bit early in the week.
It's
What? And
absurd,
I know
eh?
you're blown up deluxe about that.
Is
What is
he?
going on with the NRL's injury reporting there? That's outrageous. How can you almost miss up to a month, but then be back the next week? That just doesn't make any sense. I know in the NBA, that's a huge sort of ongoing issue. If you play NBA fantasy, the some of the clubs are just so poor with their injury reporting and just don't give any updates. And seems like it's sort of making its way into the NRL a little bit here with Fafita, and then I guess we'll touch on it again later. But Max Plath as well was sort of in a similar situation. So yeah, not ideal for people at all when you get false news like that. Um,
Yeah, agreed. Just on that quickly, I had to check the date. I thought it was an April Fool's joke, but no, it wasn't. But yeah, I just couldn't. Obviously, Supercoach, NRL physio, massive shout out to him. He provides great insight and injury updates into most of the players that get injured. But yeah, even he was dumbfounded by it. He said apparently Desi the mad scientist was playing funny buggers and just got it completely wrong. So if I owned, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't buy, I wouldn't sell, but yeah, it just doesn't put good faith into clubs and medical history and stuff like that, which I don't like to see. And another one like Turbo's coming back this week. Like,
yeah,
why are they playing Turbo? Anywho, well,
and then
it not
they've
the
got a bye next
podcast
week too.
for it, but yeah, it's bloody interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, mate. Like, the Sea Eagles have a bye next week as well, which is even more like gobsmacking how they bring Turbo back. Just give them this week off against Penrith. Yeah, a bit to unpack there, and hopefully we don't see that too much moving forward. I've got Fafita in 2 draft leagues, so I'm more than happy that he's playing. So the Easter miracle. Moving on, we got Alofiana Campera is also back from a hamstring injury, and bench forward Brock Gray returns from suspension with Cleese Haas and Isaac Fasul Malawi dropping off the bench. What are your thoughts here, mates?
Yeah, not too much to touch on really. For the cows, Drinky. I like Drinky as a shout this week. Obviously, won't be playing Origin, goal kicking. Most of all of Cowboys' good works goes through Drinky. So I do like him as a buy. I wouldn't be selling like a Gutho to a Drinky. As I said, I think Gutho probably not this week, but in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure Gutho outscores him. But yeah, I like Drinky as a buy. The only other option and shout I know we've been talking about it a bit earlier in the week is Jeremiah Nanai. We see him return and get his starting spot back, and he's coming in at a smoky price at just over 500k. I personally love an edge from the Cowboys, and I've been eyeing it up. It's just
Mm,
I just don't know if he even makes Origin this year though. So I do
I
like the
agree.
buy, but it's tricky with Origin around the corner.
I absolutely love that Nano buy at 500k. I just can't make it work for my side this week. I think he's a huge shout. It seems like we're both big fans of it. He's cheap as chips, and I think he's going to be, he's got the starting gig back. He's going to want to prove his worth, and what better game to do it than at home against the Titans? And he's going to want to make a big claim for the Origin side. So I think he's going to go on a bit of a Young type run here. We've seen Nanai in the 700Ks before, and I wouldn't be surprised seeing him there again. If I could make it work for my side, I would be bringing him in, but I've got other fires to put out. Anything else you want to touch on there, mate? I've got a couple others for the Cowboys, but I'll let you
Nah,
finish off.
no, that's me
Okay.
for the cows.
Yeah, Drinkwater, definitely very interesting, as you touched on. He's someone that I am currently trading in, but we'll move on to that. The other guys that I wanted to touch on, Purdue, if you held, applause to you. That's awesome and great matchup to be holding him for with his break even. And another pod buy, two of them actually, Murray Taulagi. He has scored like 4 tries in their last, I think he's like 640k now. I know you've got Lucas and Kraz and Herbie and all these guys, but I don't see him slowing down with these try scoring. So if you really did want to go a bit left field, I don't mind telling it. And if he's available in any draft leagues, I'll be snapping him up straight away. Reece Robson as well for sub 500k. If we knew that he wasn't playing Origin, and as you said, that you're looking for a hooker, if we knew he was guaranteed to not play Origin, you could make that jump from Pags to him for 100k, and that would be a lock for me. I would be doing that 100%. It's just that Origin cloud makes it a bit murky whether you can pick him, but I really don't mind the price he's at the moment for Supercoach. That's all from me, mate, on the cows.
Yeah, like both those pod plays. Especially the Reece Robson. I've looked at him as well. As I mentioned, I was looking at hookers, and it really came down to really like McInnes, Brayley, or Reece Robson. But the Cowboys have turned it around now, so I do think they get better. But yeah, it's just with the Origin concerns. I do think he is the hooker for the Blues this year. I just he just doesn't become a buy then. But yeah, no real interest apart from that from the Cows. For the Titans, pretty similar. I don't really have too much interest going on. Obviously, David Feeder again, big watch, but someone I won't be buying until at least we get confirmed that he is or isn't playing Origin. If he isn't playing Origin, I think that's a great sign, and he'll be pretty much a must through the bye period. But apart from that, for the Titans, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I don't have much here either, mate. The only other person I'll touch on is Bo Fermor. I really don't mind him at now. He's back in the back row at sub 500k as well. I think he's presents good value, but as a bit of a pod as well. And I know that you've got him in draft, I believe. So I don't mind going him, but as we said, there's so many options this week. It seems that you could be jumping to, but you can't have them all. Also, just before we move on, a bit of live mail. Ricky has been ruled out for tomorrow's clash, which will see Brendan Piakura start at 270k, I believe he is, with a bit of big BE. So he could be a downgrade option for us soon.
That's a good watch. I think that makes what edge is he on? Ricky's on the right, isn't he, for the Bronx? So I think that
Correct.
makes that left edge for the Dogs all that more powerful, which is that side. That is the one bad thing about Kraz. He's parked out on the right. Obviously, the left seems to get all the ball.
It's strange that, isn't it? Because you've got Critter, probably one of the he is probably the best center in the game, and then you got
Mm.
Karaz, two awesome players out on the right, but because you've got Burden and Kickow on the other side, could you imagine if I had an edge of Burden, Kickow, Crichton, and Karaz? Or would
Well,
that be a
yeah,
bit too lopsided? Like you
it's
could just stack one edge, you know?
well,
But
yeah, and they've even got Presto on the edge there as well. Like their
yeah,
side is actually really good. I just think it's Burden gets the calls over Sexton really, and the ball
yeah,
goes left.
yeah, I agree, mate. I think that's what it is. But yeah,
That's it. In this game, I have the Cowboys by, I think they probably put a score on 16.
I was thinking about this. I've got the Cowboys as well, but I think if I bring in Drinkwater, I'm tipping cows, but if I don't, I'm gonna tip the Titans. I think the Titans are due for a bit of a bounce back, and they've got Fafita back. So, and the cows, I still don't have full belief in them, to be honest.
Fair enough there, mate. Moving on to our second game of Super Saturday, we got the Panthers and the Seagulls.
So for the Panthers, Luke Summerton takes over at hooker from Mitch Kenny, who is suspended, while Isaac Tungo is back in the centres in place of Luke Garner, who has been concussed. Mav Guy has been added to the bench for his first game since round 25 last year. For the Seagulls, a huge boost for the Seagulls with superstar fullback Tom Trbojevic named to return after 3 games out with a knee injury. Lehigh Hopewadi, just on Lehigh Hopewadi, he is a phenomenal player. He's fully got my respect after his game last week. He's just so talented. And I can definitely see in the future them shifting him to fullback full time and sort of parking Trbojevic in the centres. But Lehigh moves back to the wing, obviously, with that, and Tom Talau goes to the bench with Fa'alalo dropping out. Jake Trbojevic entering the concussion protocols. Jazz Tavanga moves to lock, and Jake Simpkin to hooker. Josh Alloway returns in the front row, and Corey Waddell is back from suspension on the bench. Toff Sipley received a 4-game suspension at the judiciary on Tuesday night for dangerous contact. Nathan Brown has been named on the bench despite suffering a shoulder injury against the Dragons. What are your first thoughts there, mate?
That's it, mate. For the Panthers, obviously, we saw them bounce back last week. Dylan Edwards posted a massive 135, and I think for whatever reason, if he doesn't get that origin shot, I really like him in Supercoach. I had him last year. He does go on these runs. He is so involved. And I think we've seen now the Panthers attack is so heavily reliant on Cleary and Dylan Edwards, especially since they've lost Luai. So I do like Dylan Edwards as a bit of a sneaky shout there. Apart from that, pretty standard. I think Panthers do all right again this week. I think they could put a score on the Seagulls. Depends what Seagulls turn up, but I like Nathan Cleary as a C this week, and yeah, that probably covers it for the Panthers for me.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I like the Dylan Edwards shout, and maybe I do have a bit more of a look at him as someone who is looking to move off Reece Walsh. Yeah, with Luai out, he seems to be sort of taking the reins as that second ball player. So yeah, he looks really good, and not too much else to touch on there. It's a bit surprising to see Lindsay Smith again on the bench. I don't know how Liam Henry starts over him. It must just be a bit of a tactical play, but yeah, not too much else from Supercoach point of view.
Yeah, that's it. And then for the Seagulls, obviously we see Turbo back, touched on before. It doesn't really make any sense, but it's whatever. It's the Seagulls. Not really too much else that interests me there. Obviously, Olakuatu owners are now facing a bit of a difficult period. I wonder if he makes Origin this year. And well, do you reckon he does?
I don't think he does now with Hudson Young playing the way he does. I sort of did a bit of a draft side of mine, and I don't think you can take four edges into Origin. So I think Angus Crichton and Liam Martin have two spots locked down, and then Hudson Young's got the third, I think, off the bench for us. And then the other three spots should be a utility and two middles, I believe. So it would be strange if they took two edge players in to Origin. And Olakuatu was terrible last week as well. He did himself no favors for making selection. But yeah, you're right in saying that the owners face a bit of a tough period with them playing Penrith away, and then they move into the bye. And if he does play Origin, then it's going to be even bigger sting for them. So, what do you think he plays or no?
Well, yeah, off current form, I don't think he does, but I rate him highly. I think he's a gun. It's just the Seagulls are out of form. Obviously, Turbo back might change a bit of that, but I really don't see it against the Panthers at home. So yeah, for me in this, I have the Panthers by 14.
14. Jeez. I think with Turbo back, the Seagulls show a bit of hope, but I'm a big Turbo believer. I think the Panthers win, but I'm going to say by 8.
Should be a close game regardless for our Saturday nights. Moving on to our first game of Sunday, we got the Raiders and the Dolphins.
So for the Raiders, we have Coach Ricky Stewart goes with the same 17 that got the job done against the Titans, with Josh Papali'i and Morgan Smithies in line for another game day swap, as has been the case in recent weeks. Simi Sasagi is listed as the 18th man. For the Dolphins, Francis Molo makes his club debut in the front row, and Mark Nichols moves to lock to replace Felice Kafusi, who has done his knee. Hooker Jeremy Marshall King remains sidelined with an infected leg, but is expected to be back next week. Max Plath, who we touched on earlier, has been named to play despite suffering a full injury against the Storm. What are your thoughts there, mate? We'll start with the Dolphins, eh?
Yeah, all right. For the Dolphins, obviously the big watch for me here is Herbie Farnworth. We've seen him score his second try now of the year, and he pushed out 100 pretty much again. Like his average is insane. I think he's averaging like 73, 74 now. He's just so good. He mauls work. He loves a crabby walk, the tackle bust galore, loves an offload. I just really like him as a super coach buy. He's also a pommy, so he won't no chance of any origin. And the Dolphins do have a pretty good buy draw. So I love him as a buy. It's just I can't quite make it work this week. But apart from that, from the Dolphins, from a super coach option, that's all that really interests me there, mate.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the Herbie take. I think if you are looking at a Dolphin, it's 100% him. His base and power is through the roof. Similar to Karaz, I even think he's got more base and power than Karaz statistically. I don't hold me to that. But he's just very safe, isn't he? And he's just a very good player, one of the best centers in the game. The only other person to touch on here is Max Plath. As someone that's, he's coming back, he's got a 15 in his rolling average now. He's going to bleed some cash, plays the first buy round. He could be a shout at Origin. I don't think so yet, but he's someone that I've definitely got a bit of an eye on, not this week, but in coming weeks, as to upgrade Sandon even potentially too.
Yeah, like that shout there, mate. Bit more to touch on for the Raiders. Obviously, we'll start with the forwards. Big Matty Nicholson. We saw him get the 80 minutes last week in really promising signs for owners. We saw Hosking come on, but play through the middle. So I think for Nicholson owners, I think I love that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to hold him now, as with Naf White, just through the buys. He's an easy player, 80. We've seen him get the upside, and I can just plug and play him when it helps. He's not a certain 17 every week, but I think if I like the matchup, I know what he does. I like him as a play and I like him as a hold moving forward there. Horsburgh on the other end, we've seen with the return of Hosking, I think it bite into Horse's minutes. We saw Horse play, I think it was 48 minutes on the weekend. So the minutes have really been down and coming down over the past couple of weeks. So he's someone I am not starting to lose patience with, but someone I'm looking to maybe consider to move on in the coming weeks. But for now, is an easy hold and easy play. But apart from that, obviously, last touching point would be Tamale. We both played him last week, had a bit of a gut feeling, and he played so well. He just maws the tackle bust we've seen now. If he gets any attacking stats, he can have a big score in him. So yeah, that probably wraps it up for me for the Raiders, mate. How about you?
Yeah, not too much else to build on there. I think the Raiders have one of the best forward packs in the comp. They're just all such good players, in my opinion. So, Horsburgh, obviously, minutes a bit concerned, but I do think he's still a safe 50. Tarpany, if you bought last week, you'd be a bit disappointed. I don't think he was a go at 750k, but he is a good player. Hudson Young, 823k, just too much now. You've probably missed the boat on him, and he's probably played his way into an Origin spot. And then you've got Matt Nicholson, who obviously with both owners happy to hold and play, especially knowing that he is 80 minutes. The only two people that I want to touch on as a bit of a pod buy, and I actually at the start of the week when lockout lifted was looking at these guys because I wanted to get in Drinky and Karaz so badly. I needed to free up cash, and I was having to look down at the bottom of the barrel 5'8" sort of position, and I was really considering three guys and Keogh Weeks, Strange, and Tyrone Wishart, who I didn't touch on, were three of the guys I was actually really heavily looking at as just downloading Campbell and just sort of, we looked at it before, but 5'8's a bit of a wasteland position, and I was heavily considering just tanking the position and getting Karaz and Drinkwater in because I'm so keen on both of them. I've sort of veered away from that at the moment, but Strange has a negative 21 break even, and he comes in and he will play the first buy. So I don't even mind either of those guys at the price. What do you think on that, mate? Do you think you could go that way this week, or you just wouldn't bother?
Nah, if I was going down, I would go all the way down to Finu. Obviously, he's not back from injury yet, but obviously, with all the Galvin news, I do think Finu is the future, and I do think he will play. So, if we can grab a starting 5'8" that I'm sure will play at some point for 240k, that enables you to then get both a Drinky and a Karaz. I like it, and I would be going him, I think, over probably Savage and your KO Weekses and whatnot. KO Weeks, so I will not be burnt
Oh, and
again. So
Strange. Yeah, yeah. Fair enough, mate. It was just something to throw out there because I know that I was looking deeply at the 5'8" position, scrolling down every single player and trying to find um a bit of value there. Of them all, I did like Wishart the most, to be honest. Just because I think with Grant out, he's got to play big minutes. He's a better player than Bronson Garlic. He's just not traditionally a hooker. So um yeah, I'm leaning towards not going that way, but something to think about. And if you were thinking about that, then I don't think it's the worst option.
good little shout there, mate. In this game, I think this will be a good game, but I just think the Raiders at home, obviously the Dolphins have found a bit of form, but I just think Raiders at home in Canberra, I think the Raiders win in a close one by 8.
Yeah, I've got the Raiders in this one, mate. By at GIO, it's really hard to tip against them. Ricky always seems to get them up, so definitely going the Raiders. And I'm gonna match it there and go by 8 as well.
Like it, mate. Moving on to the final game of the week, we got the West Tigers versus the Sharks.
That's it, mate. We got your basket case club, the Tigers, back at it again. Bringing back in Galvin in the number 6 jersey after all the carry on. So
Team first. Team first.
team lost, more like it, mate. Well, I can't believe that all that carry on just to go back on Lockie Galvin starting is just
I think it
um
shows good character from Benji. He's doing what's best for the team and for the club. I think he is the best option at 5'8" at the moment. I think we saw Dewey, which was
well,
really disappointing. I rated Dewey, and we've seen him play in the halves before and play all right, but yeah, on the weekend he was abysmal. So I completely agree with the Galvin bringing back move and Dewey back to center.
that's it, mate. But I guess the point is that Galvin was always the best option. Like, why would you drop him? You're there to win a game and not get your fourth spoon in a row. Winning should be the priority, which is sort of what I touched on last week. So in a winning side, you would pick Galvin. So it seems that that's what's happened this week, but that needed to happen last week, and maybe could have been a different story with the Tigers not losing to last place Eels, and hopefully you love it.
Uh,
Sorry, man, I got to rip into you a bit as a Tigers fan. See,
nah, it's good. I agree with it. I think it's good from Benji. He dropped him last week because the players they didn't want him in the squad. Now he's the coach. It's also Benji's job in the line here as well. He's the one that's been critiqued from everyone, really, from Galvin, from the managers, and from society and socials as well. So I think it's a good show of character from Benji. And yeah, I'll just back Benji in. Coach first, team first.
fair enough, mate. Fair enough. With that move, we see Adam Dewey go back to the centres and Naden push to the wing. Luke Laulili, oh, I'm gonna butcher that. Luke Laulili is out while Royce Hunt returns on the bench. Big Royce. Royce for choice on the bench after missing the Easter Monday loss for the Eels. For the Sharks, Pop Toby Rudolph is out with an ankle injury and has been replaced by Hal Tapua. And the only change in the squad that down the Knights. Braden Hamlin-Uele is listed among the reserves as he looks to return from a knee injury that had him sidelined since round 3. What are your thoughts here, mate?
Yeah, just on the Tigers, I think it's a bit of a watch with Dewey and Naden and Toa. They're kind of all centers, and obviously Skelton is out at the moment, so we've got a free space on the wing. But going forward as a center pairing, I don't know who it'll be. I think it'll be Dewey and Naden because I like Naden's looked good to me this year. He looked really good in that Indigenous game at the start of the year, and he obviously got injured, but I think he's had a really good preseason. So I'd probably back him and Dewey in. But as a Dewey owner, it is just a bit of a watch to see, obviously, because he did have a great game last week. But otherwise, apart from that, no real other interest Supercoach wise for the Tigs from me.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. I do. Yeah, that's a good shout there. I think Stafford Toa has been playing too well and been one of your better players this year to be overlooked. I don't know. Could you see Dewey in the 14 jersey with Naden in the centres and then Skelton comes in? Not sure. I guess that's up to Benji there. So if I did have a fourth fullback, if we had a fourth fullback, you could seriously look at Jareen Buller because
How good is
he's
he?
looked really, yeah, he's been looking unreal, breaking tackles for fun. Um, Other than that, just not so much super coach, but from a footy perspective, just want to say that, Talon De Silva, why he looks a good, young, good player, all that. The period where Uppy went off last week is when he put down and started kicking away. I just think, you know, you've got to keep Uppy on the field for longer. He's got to be prioritised. What do you think about that, mate? Like, I do rate Talon as a player, but Uppy's going to be playing 80 in this side. So I understand trying to develop this young gun hooker, but at the same time, you need Uppy out there to win games, and especially a game like that. It just all seemed to turn around when Uppy went off.
That's it. I think it's all about developing really talented Silver now, as you mentioned, super young. And I think we've seen in games this year, I think it was against the Dolphins, he came on in about the 28th minute or the 30th minute mark, and he really changed the game. He got him those early tries, he got him momentum, and then he was hooked early second half just to get Appy on as that experience. So yeah, look, it's a tricky one. I think like Appy is a gun, but I don't know if he can play 80 anymore. I think it is a bit of a changing of the battens. I think I do like the role. I just for whatever reason, the Tigers' second half this year, the way we start our second halves has been terrible, and we've lost all our games pretty much with the start of the second half, which is when it turns out to be Talon Silver on. So I don't know if he's onto
Mm.
something there, but yeah, like I love what he brings, and he does change the game up, but maybe he could work into more of a maybe a 13 role, which is what the idea was with Galvin.
Yeah, that's what I think, mate. I think he would be good, like spark in the middle, some quick, fresh legs, running there. But I really do think Uppy needs to be pushing to play as many minutes as he can because he's obviously one of their best players, and your guys' best players and your leader out there. And I really do feel like watching that game at the airport on my way back from Sydney, that that sort of changed changed the game there a little bit. Nothing too much else to touch on there for me, though, mate. On that, actually, that stat that you said about the second half, do you know who would be first place if it was judged on last try scored in the game
Eels.
in the whole comp? Yeah, it's Eels. Did you see that as well?
Yeah. Eels first, last,
Yeah,
second. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All
yeah,
over it, lad.
bit funny, mate. Like I couldn't believe that. So that's
They
a bit
score
funny.
last. Yeah.
I can't remember who was last. Was it you guys?
No,
Was it Tigers?
we're like fourth or fifth
I
last,
think it
but
was Sharks actually.
it could have
I
been,
think it was
yeah.
the Sharks. They always seem
There
to,
you go. The
yeah,
Sharkies. Speaking of the
yeah.
Sharkies, from a Supercoach perspective, the good news here is no sign of Iro again. We see Hiroti maintain that place, and I think he's a very playable option. I know he's someone I'm going to try and look to play this week, but the kid's a gun. I think all reports have got Iro coming back next week, round 9. But if he could just hold on to his spot for another 2 weeks, it would be so good because his price is already at 400k now, probably makes another 80k, 90k this weekend. It'll be 500k next week. Like, it's perfect cash here to bring in, really.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really happy with that buy, and I know that we both jumped on. I think the latest on Eero was that it would be within the next fortnight. So hopefully we can get this week and one more out of him, and that would just be awesome.
That would be ideal. Apart from that, not really much else to touch on for the Sharks. Obviously, I'd up break Brayley, but he really only scores about 40 in base, and then he needs try assists or tries to get 60, 80. So, like, I don't mind it as a shout. He's gone two pretty good scores back to back. I think he's got a real low break even, but just in a dead hooking position, I'm just not really too interested. Same goes with McInnes as well. So, yeah, this game, I think it'll be a good game, actually. I think the Tigers do bounce back. I think Galvin, this is going to be a really telling game for him. I think he stands up. I think he has a good game. And I think on the back of that, the Tigers gain confidence and are on for a win here. So I'm going to tip an upset here in a Tigers win.
Fair enough, mate. I'm back in the Sharks in this one, and yeah, not too much else to touch on from the Sharks. As I said last week, I do like Raymond and Nakora as pods. I even like Stone Street and Mulatalo as well. Those are four guys that I'll be keeping an eye on. And at a shout out, Hines looked better last week, and I think he would be a huge pod captaincy in this one. Yeah, he looked a lot better. Got 70 something touches, I believe. Keeping an eye out for, but I do think the Sharks win here, and I think they win quite well. I'm going to say by 12 points in this one. Last thing actually is Adam Fanil-Blake um, played 43 minutes 2 weeks in a row now, which is hugely concerning if you're an owner. Sort of saved by a try. It was masked by a try last week, but if he doesn't get that, you're spewing. You'd be getting like 40 points with those minutes. So yeah, but would hold.
Yeah, not ideal in that front row forward position, especially with all the guns in front row forward we have this year. But that wraps up another TLT on the podcast. Moving on to our trades and
Awesome.
skippers for the week. I'll kick us off. We'll do
Yeah.
some live trading here. So, as I've sort of mentioned, I am clearing on my deadwood. I'm moving on to a Pelotu and I am bringing in Billy Smith, which frees up 700, not 700, 411k. With that cash, I'm choosing to upgrade Hubner in my second row, and we're bringing in Eli Katoa. I can obviously afford Dylan Ukas, but I think I just rather lock in Katoa with all the injury concerns. The only other trade that is tempting me is Jenkins to Herbie, but I just think with the strength of my side and with how my second row forward would look, I think it would be better to just lock in Eli Katoa and lock in second row forward sort of for the year. With that, then we go through the team. So we'll be starting Sandon Smith at hooker. We've got Haas and May as our front row forwards. We'll give Horsburgh a R on the bench. In our second row, we've got Eli Katoa, Tino, Naf White. On the bench, we got Nicholson, Kant, and Egan. Egan will be a bit of a watch. Do we think he's a late starter again?
Yeah, I think he's a late starter again.
Is he a reserve?
Mm, we'll touch on it, but I'm battling between him and someone else in my side.
All right. Yeah, for now, I just don't think he gets one. Halfback Cleary, as I mentioned, he's going to get the seed this week, along with Hines. He gets the reserve. Vice captain for the week isn't Munster, but I actually love the shout. There's a bit of a stat going around about Munster on Anzac Day. Hasn't scored below 88. So if you've got him in, you could pencil it in as a big score. I don't like the captain Munster. A bit too risky for me, but as a vice captain, I don't mind the shout. I just think I'm going to go with Pappy and hope that he kicks. Moving then on to centres. We'll bring in Garrick. We'll bench Jenkins, and it leaves us with Garrick, Karaz, Marzu, and Harodi, and fullbacks Gutho, Ponga, and Pappy. That leaves my reserves being Ponga, Hines, Horse, and then my last reserve is between Tamale, Jenkins, Smith, Egan, and Nicholson. And out of those, I think I like Nicholson the most.
Yeah, that's who I was going to say, mate. I agree on that one.
There we go.
Like
Easy trades done for the week. What do you think? I think I
Yeah,
obviously have JC. I could burn a boost, but I just like upgrading my second row forwards. I do like upgrading the center wings with Herbie a lot. I'm really big on Herbie. I might still change to a Jenkins to Herbie trade, but I just think going Hubner to ECAT is just way more of a no-brainer. So I think I'd be best to just lock that in and then look to boost maybe next week. But yeah, that will probably be me for the week. What do you reckon, mate, on the trades just quickly?
yeah, can't fault them at all, mate. I do prefer that sell of Hubner over Jenkins for sure. Sort of that would tempt me about just setting your center wings, with the Garrett, Karaz, Herbie, and Margie. You would be so set in that position, wouldn't have to look at it for the rest of the year, and they all play the first bye. So that's very tempting, and I can understand why you're tossing it up. And I don't know. Like I obviously got Eli Katoa last week, but I think there's merit in the other trade as well. But maybe the flip a coin job for you.
It is. I just with like my center wings is really strong this year, and I think it's just I would love to go all out, and I really do want to grab Herbie to complete sort of center wing for the year. But I just think for the balance of my side, it's better to upgrade sort of second row forward and move on Hubner this week because I'm going to have to sell Kant next week anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Another, I guess, I was going to say if you're boosting, there's a couple of things that I would have considered. Tui to Lucas, I really like as a trade. You could easily get week with Tui Lucas, and then you could go Campbell to Burden if you wanted to, and that frees up like 170k, and then you could go a Hubner to Nanai if you really wanted to sort of pot up and really gun up. I really don't mind those shouts as options, and you get three guns in basically with three movements. But it doesn't sound like you're too keen on that, and you're keen on saving trade. Can't follow it at all, mate. Plenty of directions you can go.
That's it, mate. There are plenty of options this week, a bit going on and a bit of a shorter turnaround, which is good, but obviously public holiday. And I can't believe 3 games Friday. How bloody good. So
That's
settle
awesome.
in for
Yeah.
Friday. Moving on to your
I
trades, mate. What are you thinking about this week?
I might try share my screen for this, mate, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah.
See if this works. Yeah.
Let's switch it up.
Screen. You see that all good?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Perfect, mate. So for my side, this is how we are shaping up this week. So I've traded out. I've obviously copped the Walsh injury as well as the Jaden Campbell injury. Um, I might just undo these changes. I'll leave it as is. But basically, these are the trades here. I've gone Walsh, Arthurs, and Jaden Campbell to Munster, Billy Smith, and Drinkwater. Obviously, Dewey is in my second 5'8" spot, as you can sort of see here. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. So Dewey's in my second 5'8" spot, and I really don't want to play him against the Sharks playing the centres. So it kind of forces my hand to get a 5'8" this week, which is why, you're reading off the Anzac Day stat with Munster. I think he's the best option. I think I would have gone Burden if I knew he was goal kicking with their run, but just too much uncertainty there. And Munster, there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be a top 3 5'8". I think with Jaden Campbell and Burden being the other ones, and then Dylan Brown slightly behind that. So happy to go Campbell to Burden, and then happy to go Arthurs to Billy Smith. Those trades just make sense to me. And then I guess Walsh. The dilemma I'm in at the moment is Walsh to Drinkwater or Carraz for the last final trade. The thing I really like about Drinkwater is obviously he's got a great this week playing in 28-degree heat up in North Queensland. But he plays, I think, 18 of the next 19 rounds. So he only misses round 12, and he will play all the way up until round 26. So I could sort of just lock him in for the entirety, not worry about it. He covers all the Origin games. He's a playing player, and we've sort of seen in the past him has reached a mil before in the Origin period. And if the Cowboys find any form, he is going to be going absolutely ballistic. So I really like him this week. Was in the dilemma of going Carraz, but I think I am just going to back the gut and go drinking. And if you look at my fullback pairing, I think that's, in my opinion, not being biased, that's the three that I would want for now and moving into Origin. Obviously you've got Gutho, Ponga who'll play Origin, Latrell and Turbo might play Origin, but they're definitely not options at the moment, coming, injury and then tough matchups. And then I guess Gutho would be the other guy. But I just feel like these three are better. Two of them are goal kickers, and the other one's the best fullback you can have in Tedesco.
Yeah,
These will be my top
mate.
three. So yeah, happy to lock those three in, and I think that's where I'll be going. Captaincy, I have no idea at the moment. It's really a big toss up. At the moment, I'm on Cleary. I'm thinking about doubling down on the captaincy with him this week. But there's so many options. I like Tedesco as a VC. I like Drinkwater as a VC or C, and I like Pappy as a VC as well. So got a few ways I can go. And this is sort of how I'm lining up with. I'll hold Grant throughout. I'm not going to burn a trade there when he's the hooker I want at the end of the day. Just provided that hopefully he's back for when Sandon has his buy in round 10. The only sort of start decision I have to make is Jenkins or Dylan Egan if he starts. The rest I'm pretty set on. I'm set on playing Billy Smith and Hiroti, and same with everyone else. I'm not going to play Dewey. Obviously, Hubner, Simpkins, and Royce Hunt are not players. Grant's injured. So Tamale, you could play. Same with Toya, but probably not going to. Yeah, that's what I'm looking. I'm quite happy with how the side looks this week. It's just I feel like I've got two captaincies right in a row now, and I'm going to get this one horribly wrong. I reckon that it's due, and I feel like I'm going to get whichever way I go is not going to be the right one. It's really tempting for me to just bring in Drinkwater and captain though. But be a huge pod play, but I just don't know if I trust the Cowboys that much. As I touched on before, I think you can easily see the Titans winning that. Anyway, I'll hand it over to you, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, I think your first trade, JC to Munster, just lock that in, same as Arthur's to Billy Smith. Third trade, obviously, is where it opens up a little bit. I do agree, Walshy is probably a sell and you have to move him on. It's just who do you grab? Again, I don't mind the Panthers, the Dylan Edwards shout, but it's way more pod and risky. So for a drink, he has a kicking tee, has a good matchup this week. And as your little fun fact there, round 26 is he plays all the way through. So I like that play. You just lock that in for the year and then you can kind of attack a different position because that's what I'm trying to do this year. I'm trying to like lock in certain positions and then move on and then don't really have to worry about trades there, which is kind of why I'm tempted to just lock in center wing. But yeah, I think they're good trades. They make sense for you. You have had some bloody good luck with the captaincies recently, so hopefully whoever you get on, if you get on Cleary as well, we can ride him home together. But the only thing I would say is I just don't know about playing Jenkins. Like, I think I would definitely play Hiroti over both Billy Smith and Jenkins. And I think that Roosters game is going to be a low scoring game, especially at Anzac Day. So I don't know. I'd probably bench both Billy Smith and Toyer and probably play Tamale and Hiroti, and then Egan for your other
Yeah,
reserve.
I'm not sure, mate. I think the thing that's tempting me in to playing both Jenkins and Billy Smith is obviously the captaincy on Cleary. If you're captaining Cleary, you have got to have a bit of faith that the Panthers are putting points on. Jenkins is on the wing, obviously outside a bit of a glue hands and McLean, but
Mm.
I feel like he could be due a try. We sort of picked that with Tamale last week. No one was really keen on playing him, but when they're due, they're due. And I've got that sort of feeling with Jenkins this week, which is why I'm leaning towards him. And then Billy Smith, I think I just like him. I'm not sure, but I think I will play one of him or Toya. I just not sure yet. Just to sort of pair with Tedesco, I want to cheer something on there, but definitely not playing Dewey. I guess Egan's the only other shout, but yeah, something to think about. Yeah, not really settled on that yet, but this is definitely the way I am leaning at the moment. And for captaincy as well, I think I will VC Drinkwater and Captain Cleary, but gee, it's hard to pass up Teddy and it's hard to pass up Pappy as well. Especially if Pappy goes huge or Teddy goes huge, I'll be filthy. And I've got a feeling I'm going to get it wrong this week, to be honest. So, um, yeah, happy to lock that side in, mate. Very content with how it's looking. I've got 150k in the bank, as you can see as well, so I can sort of go Drinky or anyone I want in the game, even Hudson Young if I wanted to. Um, but at the moment, for me, it's Drinky or Karaz. Other little shouts I don't mind. I've toyed around with Fletcher Sharp and Ponga as well at their price. I quite like them too. So. But yeah, that's aside for the week, mate. Um, yeah, guess that will wrap us up.
Yeah, mate, looks good. Hopefully we both see green arrows again this week and we keep doing well, keep going on the up. And hopefully this time next week I might be inside the top K, which I'd be stoked with by round 8 being in the top side, the top 1,000. Then I can start really attacking
Yeah,
and making moves to keep going onwards and upwards. And maybe one day we'll get to that number 1 position. But yeah, thanks for another great
that's it,
episode,
mate.
mate. Been a pleasure. Hopefully a good week for you and for me this week in Supercoach. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again, Fish, and thanks for another good episode. Hopefully, we can come back next week and see some more greens. We're both on the upward trend, and I know that you're closing on 1K, so hopefully see you there.
That's it, mate.
Thanks everyone for
Massive
listening.
moving week. Awesome. All right. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, see everyone.